Welcome to the World of Books, one of 7 worlds in 7 World Productions, a subsidiary of Angelgram Music. My name is Gino. I am sole owner of Angelgram Music and executive director of 7 World Productions. Continuing our series In Search of Beauty, here is Chapter 19, Cecilia. Hope you enjoy. Previously from In Search of Beauty. My search for beauty would blossom forth in a revelation so profound it would guide me to my destination with happiness, good fortune, and health, and a sense of belonging. I would start my journey of transformation and be forever changed for the good. Chapter 19, Cecilia. We arrived in Singapore for 5 weeks of rehearsing for the live telecast of the Miss Universe pageant. Sheila and Deborah had a room with the delegates for the pageant at the famous Raffles Hotel. I had mine at the Pan Pacific, which was built just in time for my arrival, as well as the rest of the telecast crew and personnel. Singapore, officially the Republic of Singapore, is an island state city off the southern tip of the Malay Peninsula, 137 kilometers, or about 85 miles, north of the equator, south of the Malaysian state of Johor, and north of Indonesia's Riau Islands. Because of this location, the sun and the moon travel across the sky directly overhead. Singapore is a highly cosmopolitan world city, with a key role in international trade and finance. The country is the world's 4th leading financial center, and the Singaporean economy is often ranked amongst the world's top 10 most open, competitive, and innovative. Singapore has a diverse populace of 5 million people made up of Chinese, Malays, Indians, Asians, and Caucasians of different ethnic origins. This is in line with the nation's history as an immigrant nation. The populace of Singapore has the 6th highest percentage of foreigners in the world. Foreigners are 42% of the population in Singapore, and they make up 50% of the service sector. All children are required to learn English, Malay, and Mandarin Chinese. I arrived early, even before Tad and her assistants, to start rehearsing The Little Sisters. I met with the committee that had chosen the 80 young ladies between the ages of 4 and 8. Tom Baylor, the new music director for the telecast, had arranged an old Disney tune, When You Wish Upon a Star, for the serenading Little Sisters during the top 10 evening gown competitions. Thomas Baylor has enjoyed a career in entertainment that few can claim. He has had the privilege of working with numerous icons of our time. He was both music supervisor and executive producer of the soundtrack album For the Color Purple, working with Oprah Winfrey and Whoopi Goldberg, directed by Steven Spielberg and produced by Quincy Jones. He was both lyricist and composer for Michael Jackson's She's Out of My Life, as well as Michael's principal vocal arranger throughout his career. He composed, again both lyrically and musically, The American Dream for Barry Levinson's Wag the Dog, starring Robert De Niro and Dustin Hoffman. Thomas served as creative director at Radio City Music Hall and for numerous Super Bowl halftime shows, and also composed the music for Siegfried and Roy's 13 years sold-out show at the Mirage Hotel in Las Vegas. He served as music director and producer for many Diana Ross events, including her television special Red Hot and Blues, as well as for her appearance in the opening of World Cup 1994. Thomas provided voices and vocal arrangements for Barbra Streisand, and was also chosen as vocal arranger for Billy Joel's album Innocent Man. Tom's long history of collaboration with Quincy Jones reached a new level when he was asked to be associate producer and vocal arranger for We Are the World, which reunited him with many artists with whom he had worked as a singer, arranger, and/or producer, such as Ray Charles, Stevie Wonder, Tina Turner, Billy Joel, and Bette Midler. Thomas has composed music for countless television shows and films. His score for The Object of Beauty, starring John Malkovich and Andie MacDowell, garnered much critical acclaim. He has received the coveted Alumni Merit Award from the University of Southern California and was also honored by his alma mater's Thornton School of Music with a Special Commendation Award. He served as vocal consultant and music conductor for the movie The Wiz, and also served in that capacity with the added moniker of music director for many events sponsored by the White House, including America's Millennium, Points of Light, and President Clinton's inaugural concert. Thomas has also served as music director and arranger for the Kennedy Center Honors. He penned another hit record for Cher entitled Living in a House Divided, and Nora Ephron chose his song Cowboy Reggae to introduce John Travolta on screen in her movie Michael. Thomas's novel Anything is Possible, A Tale of Aesop, has been endorsed by Quincy Jones. Tom was hired by the pageant to modernize the music. Tom was one of the first music producers to use all electronic equipment to single-handedly record the music for the pageant. He had his own studio where he had a complete orchestra in his electronic instruments. He would bring them to the venue locale in flight cases and was able to compose on-the-fly, telecast-ready music for the pageant. He was way ahead of his time with cutting-edge technology that seems archaic now, with MP3 players, computers with sound generators, and with wave capabilities. Tom's equipment was 6 towers of rack space filled with sound equipment that now can be generated in a laptop or even your iPhone. We didn't even have CDs then, only cassettes. Tom made cassette tapes of the song for all of the Little Sisters and shipped them 1 week before our first rehearsal. I was amazed at the first rehearsal how much the little ones had learned and how proficient they were in their pitch singing and enunciation. It was an extreme pleasure to work with these angels, as I called them. About 2 weeks into the rehearsals, the Little Sisters had their singing part memorized. I began the task of rehearsing them for the part where only 10 Little Sisters would work with the 10 semifinalists, curtsying, giving a flower to their respective country delegate as they were announced during the evening gown competition. As before in previous pageants, I had divided up the 80 into 8 groups of 10 and rehearsed them accordingly. Each rehearsal I had the angels divided up into different groups so they would never know when they would be called upon to do the choreography. They all had sashes naming each one as their corresponding delegate from around the world. The last week before the telecast was devoted to on-camera rehearsals with the delegates. The first time the Little Sisters met their respective counterparts was truly a moving experience. Each little girl had on a sash with a country designation, and each delegate had to find her corresponding little sister. It became a private social event beyond belief without the presence of the press. Only pageant staff, parents, and delegates with their little sister were in attendance. I witnessed 80 little girls looking up to these delegates, and each delegate moved to tears in having a little sister greet them and show them their talents in singing. Prior to this meeting, the Little Sisters had a surprise for me. The last day of our rehearsals alone, all of the little ones wanted to show me what they had learned at school. Each one came to the piano and performed a little piece just for me. Imagine 80 little girls in a recital. They all played, and each one showed talent and poise beyond belief. I truly felt like I was in heaven observing and watching these angels filled with such innocence and love. I was overwhelmed with emotion and could barely contain myself. This was their way of thanking me for having the opportunity to be a part of a live worldwide telecast. Surely for some of them this would be a cherished memory. I know their parents felt pride and joy seeing their daughters on TV. The Little Sisters rehearsal was interspersed with rehearsals for the delegates with Tad and her two assistants. I always had double duty during Miss Universe time, working with Tad and the delegates and then working with the Little Sisters. Basically, I was on call all day and some evenings. I rarely saw Sheila and Deborah, who went shopping and sightseeing most of our stay there. Out of the many days of rehearsal, one stood out more than any other and remains firmly etched in my memory. We were on a meal break, and one of the delegates came up to me at the piano where we were rehearsing and asked how many pageants I had worked for. I told her this was my 5th Miss Universe. She said I must really know what it takes to win. She asked me if I had any suggestions on how to behave, how to perform, and how to win the crown. I was not prepared to tell her my views, but the look on her face made me ask why she needed to ask these things. She said that she grew up poor in Santiago, Chile, and wanted to make something of her life that was worthwhile and dignified. She was so earnest and sincere, with such expectant eyes, as if someone she sensed that I knew the secret to winning, as if she knew I had been observing the delegates as I had with Miss USA and Hallie. The following words poured out of me as if they were spoken by someone else. Quote, "Be confident about the things you know without being boastful, and be humble about the things you don't know without self-pity." End quote. I further told her to maintain an equal balance in her composure about confidence and self-pity, and keep doing what you are doing and you will win. She looked me straight in the eye and then hugged me and thanked me profusely. With a small tear in her eye, she said, "I will do as you say. Muchas gracias." She then went to the adjoining room where the other delegates were being served lunch. As she left, I noticed that Sheila and Deborah had come into the hall during rehearsal, and Sheila came up to me with a Cheshire cat grin and said, "So, you've talked with the winner, have you?" I smiled back and said, "I don't know what you're talking about." Working the pageants wasn't just about rehearsing. Some evenings, the production staff would gather at one of the many watering holes in the hotel. One night in particular, I decided to sit down at the piano in the bar and started by impersonation of a lounge lizard. I played a couple of tunes, and then someone got a microphone and someone else requested I sing, and the next thing you know, I am performing. I even tried out a couple of songs that Sheila and I wrote. The TV staff was floored. The drinks kept coming, and the more I played, the better the response. Even the show's sponsor representative from Procter & Gamble came up to me and congratulated me on a superb performance. This was one of those moments in pageant history that never got recorded or memorialized. It was just a fun evening where everyone left happy and relieved of all the daily pressure and grind of putting together a live telecast. The following day, everyone thanked me and hoped I would repeat it often. As with so many spontaneous events in our lives, sadly, that span of time spent at the Pan Pacific Lounge was never recreated. It was a once-in-a-lifetime event, forever lost in the memories of all those in attendance that night in Singapore. Tad and I, together with her two assistant choreographers, rehearsed the delegates in preparation for the presentation show. The presentation show was performed about 10 days before the live telecast. The show served two functions: provide a revenue-generating venue for the local sponsors by selling tickets to the show, and provide the preliminary competition in swimsuit and evening gowns in front of the judges. Each delegate would appear on stage in both swimsuit and evening gowns. The following 2 to 3 days after the show, each delegate would compete in interviews with each judge, usually at the hotel where the delegates were housed. The scores from the presentation show were combined with the interview scores to tally the top 10 finalists that would be announced on air during the live telecast. Only the top 10 would continue to compete for the title during the telecast. The last 5 days before the telecast was designated as on-camera rehearsals, where everyone rehearsed with the cameraman and TV director with sets and costumes in preparation for the live telecast. I had been observing all the delegates, and during a break I sat with Sheila and Deborah and told them I felt very strong about Cecilia's chances to win the crown for her country, Chile. Both ladies agreed with me. On the night of the telecast, when the top 10 were announced to the world, Miss Chile's name was called last as top 10 number 10. Of course, they were announced in no particular order. Cecilia actually scored in the top 3 during the presentation show and interviews. During the telecast, Cecilia competed with 9 other semifinalists in swimsuit, interviews, and evening gowns. From this group of 10, 5 would be chosen to compete in the final question, followed by the judges ranking the 5 to determine the finalists and the winner. I was located during the telecast in what was known as the pit. It's that area directly in between the edge of the stage apron and the judge's table. Both Tad and I cued the contestants' stage movements from there, sitting on the floor so that we could not be seen by the cameras, judges, and audience behind us. This was also the area where I could cue the little sisters' movements during the evening gown competition. Needless to say, we were very close to the judges and often heard comments during the telecast. As we progressed through the telecast and the competition, I could not discern who was leading through the swimsuit and interview portions of the competition. Frankly, I was mentally preparing myself for the all-important part of the evening gown competition with the little sisters. After Bob Barker announced the beginning of the evening gown competition, the little sisters began their "You Are My Star" medley. They were beautiful in their purple and blue long gowns, and each one of them sang with enthusiasm. If the reader wishes to see a clip of this event, link to the following on www.youtube.com. As each semifinalist walked through the arches with her respective little sister, they received a small bouquet of flowers from their little sister, and then they walked to the front of the stage and curtsied to each other. The little sister would move off stage and off camera, while the delegate would make a small circle down center to display her evening gown to the judges. The delegate would stop and pause at the end of her circle so we could flash her score to the audience at home. We in the venue could not see that score. The last delegate was Cecilia, Miss Chile. When she walked through the archway with her little sister in hand, she gently caressed the chin of her little sister with obvious love and affection. As she made her circle, holding her white gown with her free hand and the bouquet of flowers in the other, both Tad and I looked at each other because we heard very audible sighs of oohs and ahs coming from the judges right behind us. A wave of intense emotion, of love and affection that started with Cecilia and her little sister swept over Tad and I onto the judges. We were convinced that Cecilia had won at that moment. It was later when we saw the taped telecast that we noted Cecilia's evening gown score was the highest at 9.765, with 10.0 being perfect. The rest of the competition did not matter. She made it to the top 5 and beyond. I was convinced that she showed confidence without being boastful and humbleness without self-pity throughout the competition, from the presentation show and through the telecast. She had found the key ingredient to enchanting the hearts and minds of the judges. And that is how Cecilia Boloco, a young woman from Santiago, Chile, became Miss Universe 1987 in Singapore. If you like this episode, click like and add your comments. Better still, why don't you subscribe if you haven't already so that you may receive email notifications of future episodes. Also, check out our other worlds at Seven World Productions: the world of art, the world of faith, the world of family, the world of food, the world of games, and the world of music. Go and be